Well, shalom YouTube. Hey guys, it's Fletch. Welcome back to OTH. Today we are working on putting up some more food for long-term storage. Local business around here had corn on sale for a pretty decent price. Not the best price I've historically seen, but I didn't have to go in and dicker or anything. It was a fair price, so I just went in and bought I think 20 bags. And so the point in this video I wanted to share with you guys is some tips and tricks for long-term food storage, and some of it is just stuff I've learned over the years, and some of it's stuff I've learned from the mistakes that I've made. So, and yes, I'm jamming out to classic rock, so we'll have to see how much that's bleeding through, and I may have to shoot this again. But anyways, the first thing is that if you are looking to buy used 5-gallon buckets, make for positive you know where they were stored. And here's what I'm talking about. You see this bucket here? That bucket started cracking and breaking just by simply trying to separate it from the rest of these buckets. And the reason why they do that is because that bucket sat out in the sun. And these buckets, because they're not meant to be outside, they don't have any, thing in the plastic that protects it from the sun, and so the plastic gets dry and brittle. So if you're buying used buckets, a couple of things that you can do is to just buy one bucket from the person before you do anything else, so they can't get pissed at you. And you see these ribs on the side? A lot of these buckets have. Just push down on them, and if they snap off like that, that's no bueno. Or as they used to say in the service, that's a no-go. And don't waste your time with the buckets that person is selling, because they're just brittle and they're going to break apart. Because once you load, and also the buckets don't necessarily need to be food grade either, because you're going to put a Mylar bag in there, and so the food is inside the Mylar bag. The purpose of the bucket is just so you have some way to carry that bag, the Mylar bag, easy way to carry it, and to prevent it from getting a rip or a tear or a puncture in the bag. And so the bucket itself doesn't need to be like a $7 food grade bucket. It just needs to be a good bucket in decent condition. However, if you have the money, I would highly recommend just buying all brand new buckets. You'll just save yourself a lot of heartache. You can trust me on that one. But if you're like me, you have a large family and you got a lot of food that you need to put away, and to have some for others and different things like that, then listen to what I'm telling you. So check the buckets. Another thing you can do is you can roll the bucket, and here's what I'm talking about. Take the bucket, lay it on its side, and push on it and roll it. If that bucket cracks, like you heard that one cracking, but it didn't actually break, that bucket is probably marginal. However, I'm going to try that, because if the bucket breaks, I can still take the Mylar bag out and put it in another bucket. And so the point of me telling you that is also, if you're traveling to pick up the buckets, make sure that you talk to the person, and play 50 questions with them, so to speak, and make sure what the quality of the used buckets that you're getting is, because if you drive 2 hours or an hour or whatever it is to pick up those buckets, then you feel obligated right, in some ways, to at least buy some, right, something like that, because you don't want your trip to be a total bust. And so I learned that. And here's another thing that I've learned is that food grade grains, you can eat them. They're not necessarily quote unquote food grade, meant for human consumption, but almost always the only difference between them is how much the grain was cleaned. So as an example, if you're getting whole shelled corn here, there's going to be chunks of husk in there, and there might be some dirt and different things like that. It doesn't go through, I think, like the stuff that's meant for human consumption gets cleaned and filtered like 3 to 4 times before it's put in the bag. This stuff is only like maybe 1 or 2 times, and so that's the basic difference. Now, having said that, another issue, and this will depend on who you talk to and what their belief system is, but a lot of times inside of your bag of corn, especially if it's animal grade feed, because inside your bag of grain, a lot of times you've already got the eggs in there for the weevils or mealworms or whatever it is that may infest your food. And that was the purpose, that was the reason why people got to doing the mylar bags and the oxygen absorbers, because if it's an oxygen deprived environment, then the eggs can't hatch. And what people used to do was they would do things like take dry ice and they would put that in there, and then they would freeze the bucket for 24 to 48 hours in a deep freeze. And so if you put up 20 buckets, you would just rotate them through your deep freeze. And that freezing process apparently kills the eggs. And I can't speak from that firsthand, but if there's some of you old school preppers out there that can attest to that, please chime in and share with the rest of us. But I'm definitely going to do that with this batch, the 20 bags of corn that I just got here. And I'm going to rotate these through my deep freeze and freeze them just to make sure, even though I'm putting them in mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. Because once I open up that bag and I start eating out of it, well, I just introduced oxygen to it, and I may have, an unwelcome infestation of weevils or mealworms or whatever. And so I am going to do that. I'm going to cycle them through and freeze them. And the other thing is if you have, food that's gone bad, don't throw it away, right? You can sell it on Craigslist and different places like that as animal feed, right? Because chickens don't care if this shelled corn has got weevils in it, and they don't care if it's got mealworms in it. Actually, you can buy bags of mealworms to feed to your chickens as a treat. So, don't get all hung up about that. And, so whether it's the weevils and the mealworms are somehow getting into your bags, or it's because they are already in the bags and they're hatching at a later time, it could be either or both, right? But the point being is, don't leave your food bags like this, especially these, the paper style bags. Don't leave these sitting around for an excessively long period of time. You need to get them in your mylar bags in oxygen absorbers and sealed up as soon as possible to keep that from happening. And if you're not going to use, human grade corn or, grain, whatever that is, I would recommend taking that through the deep freeze process, because I just noticed this is the pallet of corn that I just bought, and that right there is a weevil. So obviously they're around, they're attracted to this type of stuff, and it's going to be an issue at some point. And also something to keep in mind, if you have animals, get in touch with your local feed store and say, hey, if you get bags of chicken feed or whatever that are infested, let me know, and I will buy all of them from you, and I will come get them. And the reason why is because that business does not want to advertise that they've got weevils in their food, because they immediately have to take all of that feed and separate it and set it aside from the rest, or else they'll spread to the other bags. And so that's a way that you can get a lot of animal feed for a great price, and your animals aren't going to care about it anyways, especially if it's chicken feed and different things like that. Okay guys, and one last thing real quick, just in case just through common sense and logic it didn't the message didn't come through, that if you do get infested feed, you don't ever want to put that in the same area as the rest of your feed, because that feed will contaminate your new feed. And so don't ever put yourself in that situation where that's going to happen. So as an example, if you find that you've got some bags that are infested, you need to immediately remove them and start inspecting all the rest of your bags and remove them as well. And if you have like a tool shed somewhere on your property that you don't normally keep your food in, go put that food in there until you do something with it, or feed it to your animals, whatever. But you cannot leave it with the rest of your food, because whatever is infested in there will spread to your other bags of food. So hopefully some of this information is a blessing to some of you out there. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to post them below. I hope you're having a wonderful and blessed day. Shalom.